hit record and go ahead and dive in. So let's see. All right, so digging into badges today. So again, what is a badge, why Open Badges, details on our Open Badges infrastructure, a look at the ecosystem to talk about what Badge Kit is, and in case some of you have been following us, you've been hearing a lot about Badge Kit, so we'll dive a little bit deeper into what that actually is and a little bit more. I encourage you, again, there's a questions feature within the GoToWebinar control panel. I will be monitoring that and we'll save some time at the end to answer questions, but as always, we will be available after the webinar, whether via email or whether you'd like to set up time to talk to us individually, so don't feel like you have to go crazy right now. So with that, again, follow us on Twitter. This is probably our most active channel. Jade, our global coordinator, runs this and is very interactive, always keeping up to date of what's going on, not just with the Open Badges team, but Open Badges in general. Also, a lot of our community members use the hashtag #OpenBadges. So it's just a great way as well to stay in touch with what's going on in the world of badges. So getting started. So before we really dive into what badges are, I would like to take a look at, what are the problems that we need to solve? So really, where did the idea kind of come from? And what we have is very much of an environment right now where the education and workforce are changing. And I think this goes without saying, but it's something to really highlight. And a good way to really quickly look at this off the bat is this is a quote given last year in TechCrunch by the head of HR at Google, and was saying that, GPAs are worthless as a criteria for hiring and test scores. Your ability to perform is completely unrelated to how you were in school because the skills you acquire are different. Now, we don't say this to basically say, you shouldn't go to the GPAs are bad or anything. No, but what this highlights is just a very big employer is basically saying that they're looking for more than just a GPA in a sense. And so this leads into this idea that there is a tension between the economic mobility, innovation, and access. So that is felt all across the world, not just within the US. And so really what we like to do is kind of break this down by sectors to really get to understand where some of that tension and ultimate change is happening. So taking a look at K through 12, so current system is could be slated as broken. Dropouts not really ready for college or career. There's a big interest in exploring new approaches. So this idea of personalized learning and competency based, and there's not necessarily the right accountability measures or credentials more or less in line. And so here you have a 10th grader, Isabel. So she struggles with some subjects in school, but she nets out to average despite doing many things well. She's involved in many activities, but there's no real way of keeping her from falling behind. Another example is you have the teacher side. So Tawa, 7th grade, must teach to test, no room to innovate or tend to the individual needs, and no insight into the student's interests. And so two examples that kind of show you that there's that need on both sides, the student and the teacher, as a means to really go beyond what is necessarily what today is within education. Also after school, so we have very strong after school networks in the US, and it's just a very compelling learning environment. There's so much going on. The skills that they're learning are even well beyond what necessarily is going on in school, but it's not really seen as counting as school. It's seen as after school. And so there's no real connection between what's going on in those programs and actually within school. So you have Eduardo, who's a 7th grader. He's below average student in school, but he's an emerging technologist and mentor in after school and doesn't realize that this is legitimate learning, doesn't see this as a connection to what he is in school. Another example is higher ed, universities. So again, all things that are very apparent, expensive, inconsistent. There's a growing gap between universities and career, and it's a monopoly on credentials. And so, in talking to a lot of employer groups, it's hard for them to find the people that they need based on the skills, and it's also hard for the students to find jobs based on the skills that they get. And so there's that need of basically a connection. So you have Ahmad, who's a recent grad, brings transcript to a job interview, surprised that this means little to his employer. He just went to school and did everything, but he has no way to demonstrate his skills or granular learning overall. Then taking a look at workforce too. So workforce is changing. It's not always enough to just have a degree. New skills are important and emerging, but employers can't find the right match. So like I'm saying, it's one end on the student, but then also one end on the employer. And so You can take a look at it from the worker standpoint. So Sal, displaced worker, does not know what skills he needs for the job. University is not an option, but he has no way to demonstrate the skills, all the skills that he's been learning on his job. You also have Joelle, who's the hiring manager, so can't find the right people, and has hired the wrong person at big cost, and really wants better tools for assessing what candidates can do that go just beyond a resume, that go just beyond a piece of paper. So all of those quick examples really just start to demonstrate that really right in front of us, education and workforce is changing, and that there really is no single institution that necessarily can prepare someone, but rather this need of a connected ecosystem of learning. And so, at the individual basis, there's this need for credentials that can capture and communicate the learning and skills that's happening all around in all contexts, that can be plugged in to get things like jobs and so forth. So enter in. That's where Mozilla Open Badges really came forward here. Is taking a look at that tension and what was changing, and really saying how can we use a digital way to ultimately help connect that learning. And so Open Badges is really about reimagining credentials. But before we dive into deeper with Open Badges, let's just take a look at what badges are in general. And so badges are digital representations of a skill or achievement. So it's something digital, and it's something that has the evidence behind it. But badges aren't necessarily anything a new concept. So scouting may be the first example that comes to mind. So, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, very predominant. Badges were earned for different skills, different challenges unlocked, and seen as a very good source of honor. My fiance was a Boy Scout, and still to this day has his badges up in his office. And because for him, it really demonstrated the skills that he learned at that certain time in his life. And so, but what we've seen is that even beyond that, they started to represent more achievements on the web. And some of those achievements are fun and for social status. So this is Foursquare, so a website that really is about unlocking your based on geolocation. If you go to different, whether it's a yoga studio or a restaurant or something, but it's basically showing off where you're at, and based on the number of times you've checked in, whether at an airport or so forth, you get a certain badge. And that badge is used for social, so to share with your followers of really what your activity level is. But what we've seen is beyond this social trend is that their badges are increasingly basically showing off skills that are real, and that they represent real tasks. And so this is a really good example. Stack Overflow is a developer community. It's very simple. Basically, engineers can go and sign up. And it's a place for them to go and ask questions. So these questions could be of any length or any level of difficulty, whether how do you bold this in Node or Java, or to something really intricate. And what it was other developers and engineers were responding, and what they found is that you could very quickly get a good idea of what that individual's skill level is based on their responses. So whether they responded a lot, whether they answered only Node questions, whether the people were saying that their response was good and helpful. And so before you know it, they created a very simple badge system. This is actually what the badges look like. And it really started to reflect those individual skills of each of the engineers. And what they found is with this real skills, this is what employers and schools were looking for. And so basically on top of all this data that they got from just this very simple, basically place to go and ask questions, or more of a form, is they created a layer on top of it called Careers 2.0, which as the individual engineer or developer that was part of that community, I could choose to show off all of my badges on a profile on Careers 2.0. And basically, companies like Google and Yahoo are coming in and basically paying to get these results, because it's a way to vet my skills versus other skills. Because being able to show off the badges that I got, whether it was a good mentor, good answers, that differentiated me. That really showed my level beyond just saying, I am an engineer, I know this language. And so really you saw this trend of that need of seeing that full complete picture of that individual beyond just a piece of paper and so forth. And so that is what badges. So why badges? And so really badges are the beauty of them is they can capture the complete learning path and really help build and communicate reputation and identity. And the reason why this is because basically they're reinventing the existing credential because they're granular, evidence-based, and transferable. And those are like three buzzwords that if I said I could flag, it's that granular, evidence-based, and transferable. And really what that means is that when you get a badge, that the information is behind the badge, so that it's no longer of me handing a piece of paper to you and it listing, the my main skills, and then you having to necessarily call someone to see if those are real or trust that I'm telling you the truth. You can see the badges I get and click through and see the evidence behind it, basically. And badges, with this whole idea of capturing the complete learning path, is that they're able to really surface skills and competencies, and they're give people a way to not only get recognition for what they know, but also introduce them to new things that they might not know about. So it really helps them complete this full path. And even better, than just the individual badges, this idea of a badge ecosystem. So this idea that you can earn badges for multiple things across multiple basically issuing organizations within the ecosystem, which is where really digital badges transformed into open badges. And so our idea with open badges is that the individual earner or learner can get badges from multiple places and be able to store those badges for themselves. So it's not a closed system where, if I was going to one school or working at one company, that I could only get badges within there. And then the second I left that school or left that company, they didn't mean anything. I couldn't take them. It's this idea of really building up the ecosystem. So let's take a little bit deeper dive into kind of what that means. And so we have a good graphic to kind of show the overall process. So you have the learner. Basically, the learner can earn badges whether from job training, online learning, a volunteer program. But again, this more of the ecosystem can get them from multiple places. What the learner does is store those badges within the badge backpack. So has from this area has the ability to choose if she wants badges to be shown as public, private. She can create different levels if she wants a section to show off, badges for the online training or badges for cooking or so forth. She has the ability to do that within her backpack. And then she can share them. So she can share them on Facebook, Twitter, WordPress, working on different other platforms like LinkedIn and so forth. She can share them on her website, and she can build a digital resume. So that idea of being able to take the skills that she has and really showing them off. Then from there, basically her personal networks and sites and so forth, they can connect for job opportunities, lifelong learning, and unlock new possibilities. And so it's, again, really about creating that complete learning path and really being able to show and recognize all the skills that you had. So just another look at this. And so this is where the Mozilla is what's called the Open Badge infrastructure, is we basically create what's an easier way to say it is the plumbing. So we create the badge backpack, but we create the APIs that really let all the different issuing organizations in the ecosystem be able to develop their own badge systems. But through the API, then the learner can take it and save it in their badge backpack and be able to push it out. So again, free and open source software, and being with Mozilla, where we are really focused on open interoperable initiatives. Mozilla's Open Badges was a perfect fit. So we create the technology really behind it that helps individual organizations become issuing organizations or displayers and so forth as they go through the badging overall process. And then in the badge ecosystem, a badge is more than just a badge. And that's, again, another really important thing. A lot of times people say, so it's just a pretty picture, right? But in reality, it's much more than that. It really is much more than that. And what we did was, as part of the Open Badge infrastructure, was really come up with the main ultimate criteria that each badge has to have. And so this is a great graphic that was done by a member of our community that kind of shows, once you skin off the pretty picture of the badge, really what's behind it. And so So what we did was we came up with the Open Badge standard. And so this is the main information that needs to be included with each badge. But again, the beauty of the product is it's up to you as the issuing organization to really define what it is that these are. So each organization can come up with the criteria, can come up with the evidence and so forth. And then our APIs just basically allow that, that information to happen and for that individual to be able to save the badges into their backpack. So just a look at, kind of how this initiative has really sparked is the idea really came around in, I'd say around 2010 at a big conference in Spain where people really got around and talking of this idea of connected learning and really being able to need to help individuals and connect with jobs, and started to take a form, I guess you could say, and it got picked up by Mozilla and was funded by the MacArthur Foundation. And then the version 1.0 of the Open Badge infrastructure was launched last year. It was last year, last March. And at that time there was 98 issuers and only 1,000 badges. And today, and a lot of this is just through very much organic growth. As much as we'd love to say we've talked to every single one of the 1,900 issuers, in reality, we talk to a fraction of them and help, but all the technology has helped that. So, and we've issued over 210,000 badges through the Open Badges infrastructure, and looking for this number to continue to increase as we get more people on board. So this is just a quick look, and this is a little techy, but again, we'll make sure this sends out. But this just goes to show you kind of how the actual infrastructure, or quote unquote the plumbing, can work, and how on the left side you have the issuers, which could be websites, organizations, education providers, and then basically through the funnel you see in the middle, which is the badge backpack, and then you go over to the other side, which is a displayer. So again, the everything in the middle is kind of what's included in the Open Badge infrastructure, and any organization can be an issuer and a displayer, or could be one or the other. And so we have different APIs to basically support that as well. So enough of the tech stuff. So we took a look at what a badge is, we took a look at why badges, but let's take a look at who's using badges. And so how are they being used? And so the best way I really like to do this is to revisit our stories, to then talk about how badges could help with each unique situation, and then talk about some existing organizations that are working with it. So again, you have Isabel, struggles with some subjects, nets out to average despite doing many things well, and no way to keep her from falling behind. If badges are involved, she gets badges for activities. She rewards granular accomplishments and strengths in school. She uses a combination of badges to get better understanding and guide her, and includes badges on college applications. Again, Tawa, seventh grade teacher, must teach to test, no room to innovate, and no insight into the student interests. But issuing badges for skills, she can do them for extra learning. She can capture all of the soft skills that are going on well just outside of the actual course material. She can also earn badges herself. So again, I think that's one of the really important things here, is that it's important to keep lifelong learning going, and especially teachers, constantly, technology is constantly ever evolving. And so basically, it's really important to make sure that even teachers are staying on top of their skills and so forth. And so badges can be used as a way for them to show off their learning. So a good example of this is a school in California called the Corona Norco School District. And they recognized that students weren't motivated by A's. Badging coursework was actually something that they really wanted to look into, to see if there was a way to motivate students just beyond, again, the letter grade. And so what they did is they created a pilot program called their Passport program. And the goal is that the completed passport leads to local college acceptance. And so this is a look at just kind of walking through. And so they created different badges all the way from elementary school to high school. And you could get badges for certain courses that you did, but you could also get badges for skills that were taking place even outside of those courses, for behavior and so forth. And then they're working with local schools, local community colleges, as a way to plug in. Another example of this is DePaul University in Chicago is also working with local schools in Chicago so that they can start to work to accept badges with college applications. So there's an increase in this connection of people going through the K through 12 funnel, and then really trying to make sure that all that that was acquired, even just beyond just the college application, can plug in for acceptance, college acceptance, and even in some cases, college credit. So also looking at after school. So again, Eduardo, below average student, emerging technologist, doesn't think it's legitimate learning. So badges can be used for capturing all of that information and all of that skill that is happening in the after school network. And ultimately can carry back with him to school. And then it can really start to help to build up his reputation, because again, those are things that he was very interested in and ultimately learning. And so it was an opportunity for him to connect both platforms. And so the best example of this is the Providence After School Alliance. They've been very active in working in Providence with not only the school systems, but also local universities. And so really getting badges for that expanded learning that's happening, whether it's debate team, whether it's, engineering skills, again, science and so forth. And then working with the high school and the community colleges for that credit and so forth. And so this is just, again, a look at their some of their badges that they did. And again, this is a good example because it just goes to show you, as you're thinking about your badge system, that each organization can basically determine what badges fit best for their platform and so forth. And so Providence is really leading the way, but has sparked a lot of the overall conversations with the after school networks across the U.S. about how these connections can better be made. Uh, Ahmad, again, brings transcript to jobs, surprised that this means little to the employer, and there's no way to demonstrate skills or granular learning. So badges for these, can get badges for the skills that are developed in his courses. He can share in his digital resume, and basically the key thing is it tells a more complete story. So it shows his complete learning path, and it separates him from basically, the other, let's say, 500 applicants that came from a university that kind of had the same thing, that there's more evidence behind actually the skills that he learned. And so a good example is Purdue University. And so Purdue basically kicked off again, also called the Passport program within some of their graduate classes last year. And really, again, same concept is that they were finding that there was so much learning that was going on within their grad programs beyond just you got a 4.0 or a single grade, to really show off everything that they were learning, whether labs, whether internships, and so forth. And so really wanted that flexibility for that student to be able to capture all of that. But then on the flip side, really wanted to empower the professors as well to be able to acknowledge those skills. And so they have a badge, and this is a look at the admin of their program, where the professor could go and basically create a badge. Let's say if they were doing a new assignment or a new lab or something, that they could issue to the students. And this is a good quote from the vice president of IT at Purdue, who basically, again, it's hitting on these main things. Students were learning in many ways and across many varieties. And basically, there's so much more than just the formal lectures in the homework. And so the Passport really gives the faculty and advisors a way to recognize and validate the skills of the students. So it's helping from both the student standpoint, because they're getting the recognition, but it's helping from the faculty standpoint as a means for them to recognize that and really validate what's going on. Another example, is the open education, so Code School. So we've seen the massive increase in online education, and Code School is a good example where, again, they were teaching, again, what it is, coding to engineers. And that is very much of an environment or a degree that you find that a lot of today's engineers are self-taught. And that's not to say that they didn't go through the formal channels, but there's different languages coming out all the time, or there's different additions within the existing languages. And so they really wanted to make sure that there was a way for individuals who were taking their courses to really be able to to show off the skills that they got basically. And so they created a badge system to really show off the skills and empower the individuals taking their courses to be able to capture their learning. I will also say that we're working with a lot of other MOOC platforms, because it's kind of archaic, but some of the MOOC platforms today actually do give you a PDF certificate. And so we're working with them as a way to introduce badging as a way to show off, and also be able to help create pathways to different learning degrees, basically. So also working in the workforce. So again, Sal is displaced, doesn't know what skills he needs for a job, and university is not an option. He's been working a lot and has no way to demonstrate that. So he can earn badges for this. He can view badges, that are recommended by a particular industry, so he can see ultimately, what potentially skills could be needed to achieve a certain role or to get a certain role. And he can, find different ways to develop those skills that are outside of, traditional university, as that wasn't an option for him. And he has the ability to share his badges with potential employers, so he can share the evidence of what he learned on the job. A great example of this, and I really love talking about this example because I think they've done some amazing things, and I think it really demonstrates the power of badges. Is they use badges to define skills that are important to the industry. So the Manufacturing Institute has the connections with the manufacturing companies, so they know, based on what the companies are telling them, what skills are needed for certain roles. And then they also, on the flip side, can make sure that they're badging and recognizing on the job training for actually students that are going through, or workers, more or less. And so it ties directly to the jobs. And so this is a look at, from a student perspective, basically they're unlocking badges as they go, but there's certain pathways. So as they unlock a certain badge, they can also see that if they go a certain pathway, it can lead to a specific manufacturing role. And so it helps guide them to ultimately know that the skills that they're unlocking are going to lead to a job. And then on the manufacturer's perspective, they already know what skills are needed within certain jobs. And so they can help build out that pathway, so that when that student goes through, they know at the end that that student has all the skills that they need. And so the Manufacturing Institute really kind of helps with that structure of being able to balance what the employers need, what skills they need, and help guide the student to get there. So again, it's really about that full process of how do we recognize the learning that student's doing, really help to show their complete path, but also in the end, really be able to connect them with jobs. So also in the workforce, you have the hiring standpoint. So can't find the right people, has hired the wrong person, and wants better tools for assessing. And so again, you can search, badges can be valuable on this end because you can search through the badges of the candidates. You can see what's behind it. So to the point that I made a little bit earlier, of how I don't have to look at just a piece of paper and trust that individual is telling me, the right information, is that there's evidence behind it. So I can actually see what that individual has learned and done, and I can find ultimate better matches for me. And so that we can close this gap between education and workforce, and really start to empower and help individuals. So again, a good example, Careers 2.0, I mentioned this before, the very simple developer community that based on Stack Overflow's information, the developers can create a profile, and then employers can go on and basically pay to access this information and really get to the heart of what those individuals know. And then another good example is Mozilla. So again, another big reason of why we were interested in Open Badges is, being a tech company, we were constantly looking for really good developers and good engineers. And there was a huge gap. It was really hard, and it was hard to validate some of the skills because a lot of, again, today's engineers are self-taught, or there's some level of self-teaching when it comes to certain languages. And so we really, Mozilla really looked to badges as a way to really kind of show that off. And help as well. So it was a big reason of why Mozilla was also interested in getting involved in this initiative. So that's a look of, based on the sectors, some individual examples, and there's many more out there. And if you follow our blog, our openbadges.tumblr.com, We always are constantly covering new issuing organizations or displayer organizations as they come up, because Open Badges is not just an initiative or a project that's in the US. We have a lot of international interest, a ton of great work going on in the UK and in Scotland and Italy, well beyond, just so that a lot of people that are really centered at this idea of connected learning, and how do we really help recognize and show off all types of skills well beyond just letter grades, and really help plug in for whether internships and jobs and so forth. And so some really great things going on, and this is where I really just like to highlight one of the biggest badging initiatives that we've done to date, because I think it really shows, again, really kind of what can happen when we talk about creating a badge system. And so the Chicago Summer of Learning basically was an initiative last summer where there was one summer, so it was 8 weeks. There was one primary focus that the city of Chicago was really focused on, which is addressing the summer drop-off. And so, given some of the inner city schools in Chicago and so forth, the teachers had really flagged that there was a huge drop off from the learning, obviously, that happens at the end of the school year and the beginning of the school year, and that there were just certain inner city challenges with daycare and so forth in the summer area. And so really wanted to create an initiative that promoted learning across the entire city and really tried to engage and kind of improve some of the conditions. And so what the really important was is they wanted to focus around the five organizing principles, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So this is STEAM, and some people have heard it as STEM too. Sometimes arts isn't in there, but this was the main focus of Chicago. And what we did was we worked with them. So a few members of our team worked with about 3 core team members on their end, and basically brought together 100 different organizations throughout the city of Chicago. And so this could be anything from the public libraries to the parks and recreation, to the zoo, to specific arts classes, but really worked with all these organizations to figure out what skills they would be teaching and help develop badges. And so this is a good look, so again, whether it was science, whether it was the sleuth badge because you were in the park conservatory, but really developed all of these different badges that the kids could get both at the actual organization. So let's say they went to the public library and did a certain task or participated in a certain activity, they could get the badges there, or they also could go through the website's Chicago Summer of Learning and look online to see the different ones that they could get there as well. And so it was basically this used as a way to engage and recognize learning that was happening all around the city. And what we did was we worked with all of those organizations to basically come up with a level of challenges. And so this just shows that within badge system, there are certain badge systems that are just flat. So you just get the badges that you have, and there is no kind of this idea of leveling up. But then certain badge system, there is this idea of leveling up, where if you get a certain number of badges, it'll unlock basically the next level where you could get additional badges, and then it will unlock the next level. And so the way that they structured theirs was that you basically could get unlock into the Steam badges, and then once you unlocked that level, you got the Mayor City badge, and then in unlocking the Mayor City badge, you basically got access to the closing ceremony that had a famous local artist that was there and so forth. And so what this just does is this shows you that basically, the badge system is really, as it can kind of be what best represents your organization's needs, but also can be at a very larger level. And so again, this was working with 100 of different organizations, really coming up with what basically fit theirs, and then creating a full system that ultimately could be to leveling up. So the good news is, again, 8 weeks, and this was our first really big pilot. So we basically touched 23,000 learners and issued over 110,000 badges. And this project really introduced a ton of great things, whether as well dealing with under 13-year-olds. So there was a platform that parents would be involved. There was a back end that teachers could go as a means to validate the evidence that students were were receiving. There was an easy platform for people to go in, the administrators to go in and design the badges and so forth. And so what this started to do was really start to create this lightweight set of tools that we worked with, because it was the first of that kind, that really supported the badging experience. And I'm happy to say, and this is all kind of still in the works, but we've been in talks with probably about 10 different cities in the US that are looking to pilot this summer model in 2014. So looking to take this engagement model and really figure out how it works best for their school systems as a means to continue to encourage learning and support throughout the summer. And even beyond the summer, the Chicago Summer of Learning program has now just expanded to the Chicago, I think it's the Chicago Learning Program, where basically it's through all their breaks. So their fall breaks, their spring breaks, their winter breaks. And so it's that idea of being able to continue that engagement well beyond just the summer months. So again, the good news is we did a lot of work for this, but it was just a really good pilot to show basically what this could do. And from this, what we found was, towards the end of last year of surveying and talking to different providers, is that really there was this need for these lightweight tools that we had created for the Chicago Summer of Learning. There was more of a need well beyond just that one project, or well beyond the city's project. And so it led us to really starting to work with those platforms and create what we call Badge Kit. So that is the biggest thing that the Open Badges team is working on now. And again, it's really building off the foundation that we created for Chicago Summer of Learning. And some of the tools are in use now. We launched last October the Connected Educator Month badging platform. And so I'm using some of these tools. But what we've done is we've taken a step back. We've really focused our efforts on fine-tuning these tools to make sure that it is what the ecosystem needs as a means to grow. And so just diving in, so Badge Kit is a set of open foundational tools to make the badging process easy and simple. What's an interesting point is basically, given a lot of the existing platforms out there that are issuing platforms, what we found is that it's actually easier to make a closed badge than it is to make an open badge right now. And so our thought was really to how can we help that? How can we just provide a very, very open foundational set of tools to make that easier, and ultimately improve the badging experience across the board, and close the gap basically. And so basically looking to provide that foundational tools to stoke the growth, and really help organizations like you to really go the next step. And so I think that that's the point that we're at right now. There's many people who are saying, oh, I'm interested in this. I get this. I've been looking for something like this. Like, I think badges would work really well in my platform or within my organization, but what's next? Where do I get started? How do I do this? And so that thought is that this tools is really going to kind of help walk through that process. And the good news is that, they're open source. So anyone can build on top of them. They basically can still be part of, this open community where people can come in and make additions, and everybody benefits from that. These are just more or less the foundational set of tools. And they really build on our value of openness, and this idea of really helping shape the overall ecosystem, and ultimately really just help with all the key points. So badging through issuing, building, assessing, collecting, and so forth. And so all of these tools, which the team has been really hard to work on, are set to launch in March of 2014. That will include what is the MVP. So it's basically the most valuable parts will come out in March, and then we will continue to iterate on. The first set of the tools will really be best served for organizations that are looking to, create overall badge systems. So not necessarily just one badge off here or there. And overall, it's it's a what we think that it's based on the need of the ecosystem and what we've been hearing, and we are really excited because we think that it will really help spur some of the next steps in growth, with some of the organizations and stuff that we've been talking to. And so we're really excited about that. And again, we'll continue to keep you updated on that, but that's slated for launch in March 2014. So summary again, and I'm just going to quickly go and then wrap up, and it looks like I've got some questions, so I'll dive in. And so again, open badges are the digital credentials for the modern age. They are evidence-based and verified. They're really about recognition of skills and achievements, and really helping to collect across a lifetime of what you can do and what you do know. They basically are the digital currency to carry with you and share across the web and potentially unlock possibilities, whether internships or jobs. And I will say that, again, the good news is, and this is what we really like, is that we all, whether it is you or people within the ecosystem, again, are really focused on this idea of connected learning. And badging is one way to do that we are really exploring. But at the heart, we're all really taking a step back and figuring, how can we better empower people, whether students, whether workers, whether employers, and ultimately just help connect to make better lifetimes for people. So better roles, better jobs, to improve lives, and basically just help people by really giving them this idea of connected learning and helping them find their path. So Open Badges is one way that we are very actively pursuing, and super excited to be part of this great initiative that's really taking off. But at the heart, there are things that we still have to learn. It's a very new initiative, and so that's why we are super excited that we have such an active community that's really contributing to this. And so what I love to say is that we ask you to get connected. It doesn't matter your level of involvement, whether you're just brand new, whether you're exploring this idea. We've got some great channels that really help foster the community's growth, and ultimately allows you to connect in with the community. A lot of the individual community members have great stories to share that we can only capture a snippet of. And so we encourage you to join our weekly community calls. So these are every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 Eastern time. A link, so the link at the top, bit.ly/OB comms calls. Here you can get access to all of the past call agendas as well as the upcoming agenda, and that is led by Jade, and she walks us through each week a quick overview of what's going on in the Badges ecosystem. And then we always have 1 to 2 community presenters who walk through their work and basically give an update of whether the challenges or whether the great findings that they're finding as well. So just a really good 1 hour. The majority of the Open Badges team is on, so it's also a good time to connect with us and get questions. And so we invite you to that. We also invite you to our Google group. So this is a very active group that a lot of people post questions on, or comments or press releases or whatever, and it's tapped in with many Open Badges, whether issuers, displayers, and so forth. So again, it's open, so anybody can join, and you can take a look at the past logs. We also keep this up to date with findings and stuff from the team's perspective. And then we have our blog. So again, this is very active as well. Jade leads this as well. And it's a good glimpse of not only what's going on in the Open Badges team, but what's going on in the community as well. And so we encourage you to check that out. And as always, we're always here. So badges@mozillafoundation.org hits all the key people that you need, myself, Jade, and the head of our product. So we man that and are there to answer questions, whether you need just a little more guidance or a little more information. We're there to help you because that's ultimately our role, is really helping to build this ecosystem and be able to provide the value. Again, through these channels, we can also connect you. We have our engineers that are available as well through our Google group. So if the questions get a little more technical, they're there to help as well. So just overall, our role as Open Badges is to build the technology to help organizations implement badge systems at all different levels, and then also just be there to help kind of through the process, knowing that it can be a little daunting when you're thinking about kind of next steps, and that's why we are here. So with that, that is my 46-minute overview of Open Badges. We've covered a lot from what are badges, why badges, a look at kind of what Open Badges means, a look at the technical stuff. We do host a next webinar, which is more focused on diving deeper into that technical piece and really starting to walk through the system design. So, okay, so now you know you're interested in badges, but kind of what's next, and how do you basically start to think about of what to badge and so forth. And so we'll host one of those in February. I'm not sure if the date's been posted yet, but we'll make sure to include that in the follow-up email. But it's a great next step if you are brand new and looking to basically find out more information. So with that, I'm just going to go through and answer a few questions. And I would encourage you, I'm going to tackle a few of these, but in case we don't get to all of them, then I will make sure to follow up over, we can follow up via email. And so first off is, how do you collect information on the number of open badges issued? And so that information is based on through all of the APIs. So and an API means application programming interface. So it's basically a technical way to describe ultimately the plumbing from a tech standpoint of being able to connect one system to the other. And so basically through any organization that uses the Open Badges API, we get the data on the back end that shows how many badges were issued and so forth. And it's all basically through that information. It's all in the API guidelines, but it basically allows us to see how many badges actually are being issued. Okay, let's see. How is this system managed? Is the learner's progress monitored by people or technology? So I'm pretty sure overall, the Open Badges infrastructure is managed by the Open Badges team. We provide the technology for that, but then it's up to the issuing organization to create what badges that they want, and ultimately be able to create that system for their audience. And the overall, is the learner's progress monitored? So that's purely based on the type of badge system that the individual issue organization creates. Some people do the monitoring through badges, so they could set up levels and so forth. But basically, that is up to the issuing organization how they set that up. Some are more hands-on, so a case like Purdue, it's a mix of both the instructors that are issuing the badges and then ultimately the technology that's being used to issue the badges. So that decision is basically made up to the issuing organization. How do you communicate the value of Open Badges to badge earners? And so that's a great question. And so what we've done so far, so like the City of Learning initiative, we basically worked with them to do a lot of outreach. So a lot of communication on what badges were, educating both parents and individuals. We do a lot through our channels, but a lot of it is also up to the organizations that are issuing badges to educate what it is. And that's one thing that, we're really looking to kind of help with onboarding materials. So to provide some materials that are really good for people to use when they are starting to issue a badge system to communicate what it is. But a lot of that is up to really to the community and ecosystem growth, and as badges really start to catch on, of really starting to push people. But again, we encourage basically a lot of the issuing organizations to make sure that before they issue badges and before they create that system, that the actual students or the actual individuals are going to know what that value is. And so a lot of that is working again with the issuing organization. A few other things. So we got asked basically, will this be recorded? Yes, we are recording this, and we will distribute. So everybody that registered for today's webinar provided us with an email address, and so we will be sending a follow-up email that is a link to this recording, as well as the presentation slides, so that you can take a look. You can use at your own. We also have even decks that are available. So let's say you're on the call today and really interested, but really want to walk some people through your organization through it. We have PowerPoint draft decks that are available that include a lot of today's materials, so that you can use that as well. And so overall, we will make sure that you have all of this information. Let's see. There's a few questions about, individual. There was a question about, can love to learn more about the Corona Norco School, especially how they designed the badge system. That's a great point. A lot of this information is a mix of some case studies that we're currently working on. So we're getting ready to launch 3 case studies in the next, I'd say, about week and a half, that look through a few of the badge systems. So one of them being the Providence After School Alliance that I mentioned, and then a few other ones that really dive into the process of creating the badge system. So hitting on the what worked, what necessarily didn't work, ultimately where could those individuals basically go to receive more information, ultimately just really telling the story of each of those individual organizations. And so I would basically I would encourage you to check those out once you get. In addition, there is a Haystack, which is one of the partners that works very closely with us. They had a competition last year, which was called the DML competition. And out of this, they had multiple winners that they supported in creating badge systems. And they did a full overview of the research from that. So providing more lessons best learned. And so that also is available on Haystack website. So we'll make sure to include that as well in our follow-up, so that you know. And then I'm going to answer one more question, just given the time. And then there's a few other questions that are on here that we will follow up with the people a little bit individually. But there is a question, and this comes up a lot. Basically, there seems to be a potential for abuse. So people making up their own badges, issuing their own badges to themselves. Do you see this as a big problem? So this is a good question. We have people that ask us about spam, like who's to say someone's not just going to go out and ask, create 1,000 badges and say they have all these skills. And we say that, that is not something that we've encountered. And most of there is, levels of protection that is through, working with the issuing organization and through Persona right now, which is the verification application that we use. And that it's not something that we've encountered, but it's something that we're constantly thinking about how we can put in the levels of verification and security throughout the Open Badges infrastructure. It's something that we're working very closely with the community to. We have group topics on this a lot. But it's not something we've encountered yet, but we're really starting to think about it, and we're really starting to make sure that we're working with people that to make sure that we can avoid things like that. But we're not there yet. It's not taken off to the point that everybody is focused on the spamming and so forth. And I lied. I'm taking one more question. One came in, and then again, all of you that submitted questions, there's some great stuff going on. We'll make sure to follow up. But there's one final question, which I think this is a good one. Does Mozilla provide reps that could work with school districts, help district leaders and badge system? This is a great question. Yes, we do. We are very much just kind of kicking this off. We have experts on our team that understand badge system design. We also work really closely with other organizations like the Digital Youth Network in Chicago that was pivotal in the Chicago Summer Learning launch. So right now we're kind of working together to put together a unified approach, so that when cities are looking to launch big badging platforms, that there is support and that there is help in guiding through the process, very similar to the Chicago Summer of Learning model. So yes, this is something that we are working on, and that we are going to be launching with the cities that we're working with this summer as a pilot program. But people from the Mozilla or the shared ecosystem are definitely there to help. So with that, I'm going to wrap up and just, say again, thank you for your time today. I hope this was beneficial. And I know we covered a lot, but a lot of this really builds into the general overview of Open Badges. The learning should not stop here. I encourage you to continue to check out our channels. And again, we'll make sure you have these slides and these recordings just in case it was a little fast for you. But overall, we like to stay in respect to people's times while making sure we cover the content. And overall, we thank you. We thank you for your interest today. We look forward to the conversation continuing. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out to us, badges@mozillafoundation.org. Again, that's connected to the three people that can answer all of the core questions that you could have. And we basically just look forward to having you as part of their community and just continuing on this conversation of how can we really help individuals and connect them with internships and jobs, and really explore the idea and concept of connected learning. So with that, I hope everybody has a great Wednesday and stays warm wherever they are. I am in Washington, D.C., and it was 9 degrees when I woke up this morning. So look forward to everyone seeing you on our channels and keeping the conversation going. Thanks, everyone.